My mother-in-law threw boiling water on me when I refused to divorce her son, so I pressed assault charges and she got deported back to her country. Welcome back, family. If you haven't already, subscribe and say hi in the comments. We'd love to know where you're watching from. With that, let's continue today's story. The water hit my left shoulder before I even registered her movement. One second I was standing in my own kitchen, the next I was screaming as boiling water seared through my cotton shirt and into my flesh. My mother-in-law, Adeline, stood there holding the empty kettle, her face twisted with rage. "You will sign those papers, you ungrateful witch," she hissed. I collapsed against the counter, my whole body shaking. The pain was excruciating, like 1,000 needles piercing my skin simultaneously. Through my tears, I could see the satisfaction in her eyes before panic flickered across her face. She'd actually done it. After 6 months of threats and manipulation, she'd crossed a line neither of us could uncross. "Ethan!" I screamed for my husband, but I already knew he wasn't home. Adeline had planned this. She'd waited until he left for his business trip that morning. My hands trembled as I turned on the cold water, letting it run over my burning shoulder. The skin was already blistering, angry red welts forming before my eyes. I'd been a nurse for 8 years. I knew a second-degree burn when I saw one. "You're going to leave my son," Adeline said, her voice cold now, calculated. "You're going to sign the divorce papers I had drawn up, take nothing and disappear from our lives." I stared at her, this 63-year-old woman who'd immigrated here 30 years ago, who I'd welcomed into our home 3 months prior when she claimed she had nowhere else to go. The woman I'd cooked for, cleaned for, and defended to Ethan when he suggested she was becoming too controlling. "Get out," I whispered. She smiled. "This is my son's house. You get out." I drove myself to the emergency room, my right hand gripping the steering wheel while my left arm hung useless at my side. Every bump in the road sent fresh waves of agony through my body. The nurse who triaged me took one look at the burn pattern and asked the question I'd been dreading. "Ma'am, how did this happen?" I hesitated. In that moment, I thought about Ethan, about our 5 years of marriage, about how he'd promised me his mother's stay was temporary. I thought about how Adeline had systematically isolated me from my friends, criticizing every gathering I attended. How she'd convinced Ethan I was wasteful with money, disrespectful to his culture, and unfit to bear his children. "My mother-in-law threw boiling water on me," I said, and saying it out loud made it real. The nurse's eyes widened. "I need to get a doctor and document this. Don't move." As I sat there in the sterile examination room, my phone buzzed. "Ethan. Mom says you had an accident. I'm cutting my trip short. Are you okay?" "An accident?" She'd already gotten to him, already spinning her narrative. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could smooth this over, pretend I'd been clumsy, keep the peace like I'd been doing for months. Instead I typed, "Your mother assaulted me. I'm at County General. I'm pressing charges." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then nothing. 20 minutes passed before he called. "Naomi, let's talk about this when I get home. Mom said you were arguing about the divorce." "Wait, what divorce papers?" So she hadn't told him everything. "Ask your mother," I said and hung up. The police officer who took my statement was a middle-aged black woman named Officer Jenkins. She photographed my burns from multiple angles, her expression growing darker with each shot. "This is assault with a deadly weapon," she said bluntly. "Hot water can kill. You were lucky." Lucky. I didn't feel lucky as they debrided my wound, as the doctor explained I'd have permanent scarring, as they wrapped my shoulder in thick bandages and prescribed pain medication I couldn't afford because Adeline had convinced Ethan we didn't need my income, that I should quit nursing to take care of the house. I quit my job 2 months ago. Biggest mistake of my life. Ethan arrived at the hospital just as they were discharging me. He looked exhausted, confused, angry, but not at his mother. I could see it in his eyes. He was angry at me for making this public, for calling the police, for not handling this within the family. "Can we talk in the car?" he asked, not meeting my eyes. "Did you bring your mother?" I asked. "She's at home. She's elderly, Naomi. She's scared." "She's scared?" "Ethan, look at my arm." I pulled back the hospital gown to show him the bandages. She attacked me in our kitchen because I refused to sign divorce papers I didn't even know existed. Divorce papers she had drawn up without your knowledge, apparently. His jaw tightened. She told me about the papers. She was trying to help. Those words hit harder than the boiling water. Help? Help how? She thinks we're not compatible. That you don't respect our family values. And honestly, Naomi, the way you've been treating her. I stood up so fast the four-pole clattered. I'm not doing this. Officer Jenkins is filing charges. Your mother will be arrested. You can't be serious. Watch me. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a budget motel on the highway, the kind with peeling paint and a flickering vacancy sign. As I lay in the scratchy sheets, my shoulder throbbing despite the medication, I finally let myself cry. Not just for the pain but for the marriage I'd been trying so desperately to save. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Ethan called 17 times. His mother called twice. I blocked both numbers. At 2 in the morning my best friend Janelle called. Ethan had called her, desperate to find me, painting me as unstable and vindictive. Girl, what is going on? She asked, her voice tight with worry. I told her everything. The months of psychological torture, the constant criticisms, how Adeline had convinced Ethan I was trying to alienate him from his family. How she'd forbidden me from visiting my own mother, claiming it was disrespectful to leave Ethan alone. How she'd thrown away my birth control pills, telling Ethan I'd stop taking them on my own because I was baby-trapping him. I found the empty packet in the trash, I said. That's when I confronted her. That's when she showed me the divorce papers. Janelle was silent for a long moment. Nay, this woman is dangerous. You did the right thing calling the police. Where are you? I'm coming. She arrived within the hour, carrying overnight bags, food, and a fierce determination in her eyes. You're staying with me until this is sorted, she said. No arguments. As we drove to her apartment, she told me something that made my blood run cold. Ethan's first wife, did he ever tell you why they really divorced? He said they grew apart. Janelle shook her head. His mother drove her away too. Janelle had done what I'd been too trusting to do. She'd investigated. Over coffee in her kitchen at 3 in the morning, she showed me Facebook messages from Ethan's ex-wife, Keisha, whom she'd tracked down through mutual acquaintances. Keisha's story was chillingly familiar. Adeline had moved in with them 2 years into their marriage, claiming financial hardship. Within months, she'd poisoned Ethan against Keisha, accusing her of infidelity, disrespect, and trying to steal from the family. The final straw came when Adeline falsely reported Keisha to Child Protective Services, claiming she was abusing their son Ethan Jr. They investigated and found nothing, Keisha had written. But the damage was done. Ethan believed his mother over me. I left with nothing, not even custody of my son. Adeline made sure of that. She coached Ethan Jr. to lie about me in court. I haven't seen my son in 4 years. My hands shook as I read. Ethan had a son. A 7-year-old boy he barely mentioned, who lived with Keisha's parents across the country because neither Ethan nor Keisha had full custody. He'd told me the custody situation was complicated, and that we'd discuss it later. There was never a later. There's more, Janelle said gently. Adeline isn't actually destitute. She owns 3 properties back in Nigeria. She collects rent from all of them. She's here on a visitor's visa that she's overstayed by 8 months. She's here illegally, Naomi. The room spun. Everything was a lie. Every story about hardship, every guilt trip about family obligations, every manipulation tactic, all built on deception. How did you find this out? I asked. Keisha told me. She's been tracking Adeline for years, hoping to build a case to get her son back. She's been waiting for someone to finally stand up to that woman. I looked at my bandaged shoulder. Well, now someone has. Officer Jenkins called me at 9 the next morning. We've issued a warrant for Adeline Okafor's arrest. Given the severity of the assault and the fact that we've discovered she's overstayed her visa, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has been notified. This is now a federal matter. My heart pounded. I'd wanted justice, wanted her held accountable, But hearing the machinery of law enforcement click into motion was terrifying and exhilarating simultaneously. What happens now? I asked. We'll pick her up today. You'll need to come in for an official statement. And Mrs. Reed, I want you to know, I've seen a lot in 20 years on the force. What she did to you, what we're learning she's done to others, this woman is a predator. You did the right thing. They arrested Adeline at my house at noon. Ethan called from a blocked number bypassing my block. They're taking my mother away in handcuffs, Naomi. The neighbors are watching. How could you do this to our family? Your mother threw boiling water on me because I wouldn't divorce you, I said, my voice eerily calm. Your mother forged divorce papers. Your mother is in this country illegally. Your mother has been systematically destroying your relationships for years. I didn't do this to your family, Ethan. She did. She's my mother. And I'm your wife. Or I was. I don't even know anymore. If you don't drop these charges, we're done. I mean it, Naomi. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. Choose his abusive mother or our marriage. 6 months ago I would have caved. 6 months ago I would have convinced myself that love meant sacrifice, that family meant tolerating abuse. Then we're done, I said and hung up. This time I didn't cry. I felt nothing but a strange, hollow relief. The story hit local news within 48 hours. Woman assaulted by mother-in-law seeking deportation. My phone exploded with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. Former coworkers, old friends, even my distant cousins. Everyone wanted to know if I was the woman from the news. Ethan's family came for me on social media. His sister, Patricia, posted a long Facebook rant about how I was a vindictive woman who'd always been jealous of Ethan's close relationship with his mother, how I was destroying their family out of spite, how I was using the legal system to punish an elderly immigrant woman who didn't understand American culture. The comments were vicious. She's trying to get an old lady deported. Some women can't handle a strong mother-in-law. This is why men need to be careful who they marry. But then something unexpected happened. Keisha commented on Patricia's post. Adeline Okafor did the exact same thing to me. She's not a victim. She's an abuser who uses immigration status and age as shields. Naomi Reed is the bravest woman I've ever seen. She included photos, court documents, medical records from her own accident, where she'd mysteriously fallen down stairs that Adeline later admitted pushing her down in a private message. Screenshots of threatening texts. 4 years of evidence she'd been collecting. Other women emerged. Ethan's college girlfriend who'd mysteriously had her tires slashed. A family friend who'd been accused of theft after refusing to lend Adeline money. A cousin who'd been ostracized for questioning Adeline's stories. Within 24 hours, Patricia's post had over 2,000 comments, most supporting me. The narrative was shifting and Ethan's family was scrambling. My phone rang. It was Ethan. We need to talk. Please. Just meet me for coffee. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at the cafe where we'd had our first date 6 years ago. Ethan looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, his usually neat appearance disheveled. For a moment, I felt the old instinct to comfort him, to fix whatever was hurting him. Then I remembered my shoulder still healing under fresh bandages. Thank you for coming, he started. Naomi, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about my mother, about everything. I waited, my coffee untouched. I talked to Keisha, he continued, and my eyebrows shot up. She told me things about my mother that I didn't want to believe. But then I found documents in my mother's room. The divorce papers she had drawn up. She'd forged my signature on them, Naomi. She was going to trick you into signing them and then use them to claim our marriage was over. I know. There's more. His voice cracked. She's been stealing from me. Transferring money to accounts in Nigeria. Over $60,000 in the past 6 months. She's been planning this whole thing. Getting you out of my life, taking control of my finances, moving her sister's family here. I was just a means to an end. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt sad. Ethan, she threw boiling water on me and your first instinct was to defend her. You gave me an ultimatum, her or our marriage. You chose her. I know. I was wrong. God, Naomi, I was so wrong. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Can we fix this? Can we go to counseling? I'll testify against her in court. I'll support you through everything. Just please, please don't give up on us. I looked at this man I'd loved, had married, had built a life with. Do you remember our wedding vows? I asked. Of course. We promised to forsake all others. To put each other first. You broke that promise, Ethan. Adeline's immigration hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after her arrest. She was being held in a detention center, unable to make bail due to her flight risk status. Ethan had tried to bail her out, but federal authorities denied his request. I was called to testify. Walking into that hearing room, seeing Adeline in an orange jumpsuit, her hair unpinned and wild, her eyes shooting daggers at me, it took everything I had not to run. But Keisha was there, sitting in the gallery. She gave me a small nod of encouragement. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Linda Sweeney. She'd spent the past weeks building an airtight case. Ms. Reed, can you describe the events of April 15th? I told the story again, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I described the manipulation, the isolation, the forged documents, and finally the assault. The judge, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, listened intently. Adeline's attorney, a public defender who looked barely out of law school, tried to paint her as a confused elderly woman who'd had an accident, who'd panicked and made mistakes. My client came to this country seeking a better life. She's contributed to her community, helped her son build a successful business, and maintained strong family values. Linda Sweeney stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Okafor, you've been in the United States for how long? 30 years, Adeline said, her accent suddenly much thicker than I'd ever heard it. And in those 30 years, you've become quite successful, haven't you? You own multiple properties in Nigeria, collect substantial rent, and have significant savings. Is that correct? Adeline's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. Yes, but... So when you told your son and daughter-in-law that you were destitute and needed to live with them, that was false, wasn't it? I wanted to be close to my family. Close enough to control every aspect of your son's life? Close enough to drive away 2 of his wives. The hearing lasted 4 hours. By the end, I was exhausted, but the judge's decision was clear. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Morrison said, I find that Mrs. Adeline Okafor has violated the terms of her visitor's visa, engaged in fraudulent activities, and poses a danger to others. She will be deported to Nigeria within 30 days and is banned from re-entering the United States for a minimum of 10 years. Additionally, the criminal assault charges will proceed in state court. Adeline screamed. Actual screaming, cursing me in English and Igbo, calling me every vile name imaginable. Security had to restrain her as she lunged toward where I sat. Ethan, sitting behind his mother, looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I hadn't expected media attention, but apparently the story had gone viral online. The hashtag Justice for Naomi was trending. I gave a brief statement, thanking the legal system and encouraging other women to speak up about domestic abuse. Some of you may wonder why I didn't just leave, why I pressed charges against an elderly woman, I said, my voice carrying across the courthouse steps. But abuse is abuse, regardless of the abuser's age or relationship to you. And immigration status doesn't grant immunity from consequences. What Adeline Okafor did to me, she's done to others. It stops now. Keisha joined me at the microphone. 4 years ago, I left my marriage with nothing because of this woman's abuse. I lost custody of my son because I was too afraid to fight back. Naomi Reed's courage has given me hope that I might see my son again. To anyone watching who's in a similar situation, speak up. Document everything. You deserve better. The video of our joint statement got 3 million views in 24 hours. That evening, alone in Janelle's apartment, I finally let myself process what had happened. Adeline would be deported. Ethan and I were finished. He'd served me with actual divorce papers that morning, his lawyer hand-delivering them as I left court. Everything I'd built over 5 years was gone. But I was free. The state assault trial took place 2 months later. Adeline, awaiting deportation in detention, was brought in wearing prison clothing. She'd lost weight, her face gaunt and hardened. Ethan sat in the front row behind her, but he didn't look at me once during the proceedings. The evidence was overwhelming. My medical records, photographs of my burns, testimony from the ER doctor, Officer Jenkins's report. The prosecutor presented Adeline's history, the forged documents, the financial fraud, testimonies from Keisha and 3 other women she'd abused over the years. Adeline's defense was simple. She claimed I'd attacked her first, that she'd thrown the water in self-defense, that I was a dangerous woman who'd turned her son against her. Her lawyer brought character witnesses. Patricia, Ethan's aunt, several members of their church who testified that Adeline was a pillar of the community. But then Ethan was called to the stand. By the prosecution. "Mr. Reed," Linda Sweeney said, "what did you find in your mother's belongings after her arrest?" Ethan's voice was barely audible. "Journals. Detailed journals going back 20 years. Plans for how to control my life, how to remove women she deemed unsuitable. Notes about my first wife, about Naomi. Instructions she'd written to herself about how to manipulate situations, how to turn me against my partners." The courtroom went silent. She had pages about how to stage accidents, how to make abuse look like self-defense. She'd practiced her testimony, written it out word for word, including fake tears and strategic pauses. His voice broke. "My mother is sick. She needs help. But what she did to Naomi, to Keisha, to all the others, it was calculated. It was deliberate. And I enabled it because I was too blind to see." Adeline erupted. "You ungrateful son. After everything I sacrificed for you. I came to this country with nothing. I built you from nothing." The judge banged his gavel. "Mrs. Okafor, control yourself or you'll be removed." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Second-degree assault, fraud, harassment and witness intimidation. Sentencing would come later, but the message was clear. Adeline Okafor's reign of terror was over. 3 weeks after the trial, I sat in my new apartment. A small 1-bedroom I'd rented with money from a GoFundMe that had raised over $50,000 from supporters online. My shoulder had healed, leaving a twisted scar that would never fully fade. Physical therapy helped with the mobility, but I'd never have full range of motion again. Small price for freedom, I told myself, though some nights I traced the scar and wondered if I could have handled things differently. Ethan reached out one final time. We met at a park, neutral territory. He brought papers, the final divorce settlement. He was giving me everything, half the house value, half his savings, alimony for 2 years. More than I'd expected, more than I'd asked for. "I'm selling the house," he said quietly. "Too many bad memories. I'm moving closer to where Ethan Jr. lives. Keisha and I are working on a custody arrangement. She's agreed to let me see him, supervised visits at first. That's good, Ethan. He needs his father. I need to tell you something." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "The night before Mom threw the water on you, I heard her on the phone. She was talking to someone about the plan, about getting you out. I convinced myself I'd misheard, that she was talking about a TV show or something. But I knew deep down. I knew she was planning something and I did nothing." The confession sat between us like a third presence. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. I failed you in every way a husband can fail his wife. I chose my mother's lies over your truth. I stood by while she tortured you. And that night I could have stopped what happened and I didn't." Tears rolled down his face. "I'm sorry. God know me, I'm so sorry. You deserved so much better than me. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to rage at him. But I just felt tired. Yeah, I did." Adeline was deported on a rainy Thursday morning. I didn't attend, but Keisha did. She sent me a video. Adeline being escorted onto a plane, still cursing, still blaming everyone but herself. "She never once apologized," Keisha texted. "Not once showed remorse. Some people never change." I stood in my apartment, packing the last boxes of my old life. Photos of Ethan and me, wedding albums, gifts from his family, all going into storage or donation bins. I was starting over at 33, single, scarred, with a story that would follow me forever. But I was alive. I was free. And I had my voice back. Ethan sent one final message. Mom died. Heart attack on the plane before it reached Nigeria. Thought you should know. The funeral is next week if you want to. Never mind. I understand if you don't. Take care of yourself, Naomi. I read it 3 times, waiting to feel something. Relief. Guilt. Grief. But there was only numbness. Adeline was gone, truly gone now, and I felt nothing. Except, no, there was something. Something small and broken inside me whispered, was it worth it? The justice, the vindication, the truth. Was it worth losing everything? I looked at my reflection in the mirror, at the woman who'd survived, who'd fought back, who'd stood up when everyone told her to sit down. My shoulder ached where the scar tissue pulled tight. Yes, I whispered to her. It was worth it. But as I locked the door to my new apartment and drove to Janelle's for dinner, passing the courthouse where I'd testified, the hospital where they'd treated my burns, the cafe where Ethan had begged for forgiveness, I realized something that made my chest tight with grief. Justice had cost me everything. My marriage, my home, my sense of safety. Adeline was gone, but the damage she'd done remained, living in my nightmares, in my flinch when someone approached too quickly, in my inability to trust. I'd won the battle but lost something precious in the war. The woman I'd been before that kettle of boiling water changed everything. That Naomi who believed in family and loyalty and love conquering all, was gone forever. And as I pulled into Janelle's driveway, seeing my best friend waiting on the porch with that fierce protective love in her eyes, I finally let myself cry. Not tears of relief or joy, but grief for everything I'd lost, everything that could never be recovered. Victory had never tasted so bitter. If you connected with Naomi's story, please like and subscribe. Share your own experiences in the comments. You're not alone. And remember, speaking up is always worth it, even when the cost feels unbearable. Your voice matters.